listen to the news.
I'm not getting it.
You still haven't got it?
Oh, I'm on the page, but
First is creating a process for construction bid work and contracting before the town meeting, so that the citizens know what the cost of the project is and what company's doing the work. No more getting to the meeting and having a number and the number being too low. Multi-year planning process that brought Snow Road Bridge in under budget. Besides the under budget. The multi-year emergency DES permanent long-term culvert fix at Pine River Road. That is now in position, and it means that we do not have a huge bridge project down the road for replacement. Involved with the hiring of the independent analysis of Bailey Road culverts, which has led us to the stage of getting bids and project costs that will be in place prior to town meeting. Next week, we expect to get the answer back on the low bidder that's being evaluated right now, so we'll know the numbers. I've taken the lead sponsorship in the restoration of the historic town hall library project. So far with grants, we're running at a 67% success rate, which is about 3 times national average. And we brought in about $190,000 so far in that event. We are also going after another LCHIP grant this year for over $100,000. Probably one of the most important things is continuing to work in building a strong partnership with the budget committee. The select board for the last 4 years has actually been involved pretty much with every single budget committee meeting.
Okay, good, Chuck.
Thank you. The rest of it's here.
All right, now, any questions for Chuck about the select control? Yes.
Irene
Reardon.
Hobbs Road. For 3 years, you've been saying you weren't going to run again. Why are you running now?
Everybody hear that? Yeah.
So for 3 years, I haven't said I wasn't running. So I don't know where you heard that, but that's not true.
Well, I had heard it from you, but keep going, keep going.
I had my doubts, Irene.
Okay, let's just do a question and answer.
Irene, basically,
You complained that the pay was small. I
Yes.
asked you who pays your salary, and you said all of that big $1.76 an hour I make here. It was very sarcastic. I wonder what your value is as a selectman if you feel that way.
take a shot with some of the stuff I've been involved with, and some of the accomplishments I've done, and it kind of answers itself.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
any other questions for Chuck?
How do you want to take questions on Zoom?
Are there questions on Zoom for Chuck?
I guess if the check, the Zoom participants could raise their hand, that would be good.
I do.
Okay, while we're setting that up, and your name is?
My name is Patty Libby. I live on 1505 Province Lake Road. One of my questions is probably, I'm retired now, so I'm a newcomer because I could never attend anything before. the hours of, which is hard for a lot of people, not me now, but it was at time, for the town clerk's office and for also meetings or anything that I needed to do in town. A lot of people say, well, you can do it online. Well, you can do some things online. You can't do everything. And we do have a lot of elderly people that live in this town that don't have computers or don't even know how to use them, because I'm in the computer class right now and I'm seeing that. I'm taking the class because I'm not great at it. So are there any changes that are going to be made to make it better for our community to be able to do things that they need to do here at the town offices?
So one of the things we've been looking at over the last 3 years is looking at the efficiencies and how the offices have been run in the past. And we made a number of changes. There's been basically a wholesale change in all personnel other than Deanna.
Mhm.
So we've been able to upgrade the experience levels of the different people, whether it's the assessors or the bookkeeping, whatever it is, way more efficient than it was in the past. The current hours that are set up right now based on what this town's been willing to pay for salaries. There's none of them that are full-time. They're all part-time. And from that standpoint, if we want to provide more, we can do more as long as people are willing to pay more.
I'm actually thinking
Oh,
more
well,
of the
that's
fact of changing the hours, not increasing your hours, changing the hours. Why isn't there an evening or a Saturday once a month? Take some hours out of the daytime that they're working and have them that way to be able to take care of the people in the town.
So you're talking two offices. So you got the selectman's office and you got the town clerk.
Well,
tax
right,
collector.
exactly.
We don't set her office hours, she does.
Yeah, and that's a conversation you and I can have, not here.
Okay,
So
okay, I
from a
didn't realize
selectman- From a
that.
selectman standpoint, we have very little interaction now from the public at the window because we're doing transfer station stickers at the transfer station.
Okay,
So if you look at the huge volume we used to have, there
yes,
was people coming in to pay their dollar to get a sticker. And because we're doing it at the transfer station now, again, making it more efficient for everybody, making it easier for you, you can basically get it up there.
okay. Your meetings at night, though, what the hours that, like a selectmen's meeting, if you had something that you wanted to discuss with the selectmen, I know that you have to do it now, you're like ahead, you have to send in your, from what I understood, have to send in your questions, you get an appointment, so to speak. But what about those hours for that working person?
So we know right now from talking to a lot of people in town, there's people that can't make the existing morning meetings because they're working.
Mhm.
I also have had a lot of discussions with people that said, well, I can't make the evening meetings because I'm working second shift. So one of the things I've taken a look at is what are the surrounding towns doing? And it's interesting because there are a couple more like ourselves that are doing morning right now.
Mhm.
And there are a handful doing mid-afternoon in the 2 to 4 time frame. And there's another 4 or 5 that are doing basically the 5 o'clock or 6:30, 7 o'clock meetings at night. It's split across the board. And it's getting done by the towns.
So you're working more by an appointment now, that, which I have no problem with.
From a select standpoint, the select board standpoint, we're not doing appointments. We're hoping people will feedback, they can call in, they can write in. Any mail that comes in, the select board is looking at that every single week. So we get probably 2 or 3 mails a week on average. We are looking at those in the mail folder every week when they come in. So we're seeing the stuff that comes in, and I have throughout the year addressed some of the issues that have been raised in those emails. So we've captured them on tape for the audiences, so that basically we try and get the word out there to answer the questions.
So watching it on Zoom, the meeting after, that's where you get a lot of your answers within it, questions that have come in.
If they've come in
Okay.
by email, yes, and sometimes people will ask questions through Zoom, and we'll answer them again so that they're captured both on the question as well as the answers.
Thank you.
All right, one other question, Chuck, that is the only question that was emailed in. And this is from Gregory Wallace, and he wants this question asked of all the selectmen's candidates. So I'll ask you first.
Okay.
Let's see, due to liability risks, would you require of any town employee or persons acting on the town's behalf, require a driving record check, criminal background check, also include their work history, name and place, before executing business for the town. This would be in addition to RSA 128:9 for town health officers and their deputies. I believe in protecting the residents and taxpayers of this town from potential lawsuits caused by accident or criminal activity while on town business.
So this question actually came up after the annual meeting this last year. All employees of the town have to go through the hiring process and background check. Fire department, police department, office in here. Elected positions do not. Appointed positions do not. We haven't done them. Yes, we could do them if we want to pay to have that done. That's always a possibility. But the key thing to remember, if somebody is an elected or an appointed person for the town and they're working on town business, they are covered by the town's insurance policy to the maximum limits. So use the volunteer stuff that's going on up at the library in the town hall right now, or the old town hall. Everybody that comes in there that's doing volunteer work on the project is actually covered under the Primex policy. We don't have to do anything extra. They're automatic. So I'm hoping that answered.
I guess so. Okay, let's move on to the 1-year term for selection. And I believe there are 3 candidates for that seat. And that's Leo Racine, Matt Sawyer, and Vickie Kirk. So, come on, all 3. Sure.
And do we want more chairs?
Yes.
And so there's several people out there that should sit down. Should we say 3 minutes more?
I'm sure that's okay. So maybe could you shift down and.
Oh, this is the last next one.
Oh, that's like, oh, that's
Thank you.
I
Sign, and so this is just filling that vacancy. So it's Matt Sawyer, Vickie Kirkwood, and Leo Racine. And so start right here on my right and go to Matt. Like 2 minutes or so to do a little bit about your background and why you're running. How's that?
Awesome. I'm Matt Sawyer, candidate for the 1-year selectman term. I was born in Ossipee and raised there, and my family's been there for many, many generations. I've lived in Effingham for 12 years with my wife, Crystal Sawyer, who some of you may know runs Carroll County Adult Literacy, and we have a son who goes to Effingham Elementary. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and the bulk of my career has been in personal finance and bank management until 2019 when I became the town administrator for the town of Ossipee. I manage the day-to-day personnel and finances of a staff of 40 full-time employees and over $7 million for that town. I'm running for selectman for a few reasons, primarily because not enough people my age run, contribute, or give back, and that's a fact. They don't give back to civics, and again, I think that's true amongst everybody, but certainly in my age group. And then secondly, I do have a solid finance and management background, and now around 5,000 hours of experience as a municipal leader, which I think is invaluable for this role, especially with only a 1-year term. I can really take a solid year to learn the role, learn what you're doing, And so having somebody who does this for a living, essentially day to day, I believe has value, and maybe you will too. And so as I turn 40 this year and I count my many blessings, I'm simply offering to give back to the town with some of my time, if you want that. And for anyone who's never held public office or worked in a leadership role in local government, I can tell you it's probably not what you think it is. Every decision requires an extreme amount of thought, research, and thoughtful planning. You're not royalty, you're governed by law. The only power you have is what's granted to you by RSA. You have Department of Revenue Administration and other state agencies and courts that regulate you, and that makes matters far more complex than you probably see from the outside. And then finally, frankly, nothing in government happens alone. Many people have grand ideas and fist pounding mantras of, or promises of what they're going to accomplish or change. But the reality is nothing gets done in government alone. No one who is an island accomplishes anything. Municipal decisions require thoughtfulness, inclusivity, and integrity, and they're going to go back to the law. So if you elect me, I'll follow the RSAs. I'll vote with the law and with my conscience. I'll use logic, communicate, and work well with others, and I'll be transparent. That's what I've done.
There's one up there. Thank you. More chairs. There's one up here. If somebody wants to sit up here.
Yeah, I think you want. I'd rather do that with cookies.
My name is Victoria Kirkwood, and I was born and raised in Center Ossipee, New Hampshire. And I moved to Effingham, and I've been living here for 36 years. My son was raised here and went to the school here in this building. And I worked in Boston at John Hancock for insurance for like 12 years, and then I worked at the Mountain View Nursing Home for 17 years. And then I went to the visiting nurse, where I did doctor's billings and stuff like that. And I worked there for 20 years. And basically, I just want you to know it's time for a change. It's time to allow the people of the community to have a say and to be able to know what's going on here. And I'm going to try my darndest to make sure that everybody knows what's going on and gets the truth. And I will work for you, everybody here, and I will work with the people that are in the selectman's office and town office and everyone else that's involved, police department, fire department, whatever. And I will give 100% of my time, and I will be honest. And basically, that's that.
Thank you, Vickie. Mayor Racine?
I was born in 54, upstate New York, Champlain, New York, on a dairy farm. I have 2 grown children and 3 stepchildren. Married to Rhonda Chapiel. Been here in Effingham since 2010. I attended college part-time. I was working, obtained my business management degree. I worked for Sheridan Industry, Harris Corporation for 47 years through various corporate acquisitions, etc. Promoted up through my career as manufacturing engineer in multiple manufacturing roles. Worked with multiple engineering teams, designing parts for manufacturing, traveled the world because we had to source a lot of our work across the world. And on top of that, I had to travel quite a bit. So as far as responsible for turnkey projects for US sourcing complete folders, providing documentation, cost sourcing and testing, the average project cost $2 million. I was responsible for that and retired in 2020. What can I bring to the board selecting position? I work for the benefit of all Effingham residents, provide transparency with clear communications, foster open dialogue, and listen to all sides of issues. Promote fiscal responsibility as demonstrated in both professional career and as active member of the Budget Committee for 3 terms since 2014 and EPS, Effingham Preservation Society as treasurer. Volunteer background, treasurer of the Effingham Preservation Society for the last 8 years, including the last 2 years with increased involvement in fiscal responsibility for the historical town hall project. EPS took on the responsibility for supporting HDH and restoring the building. All accounts of this project are managed by EPS 501c3. Volunteer numerous hours on restoring the EPS building and HD project, Lord's Hill Meeting House, and multiple other projects. Key issues: continue to provide fiscal responsibility, review of town-owned facilities, determine how we can enhance existing facilities to effectively support our police, fire, town office, and transfer station departments. Explore options for older retired population in Effingham on fixed incomes. Some of these residents have asked why taxes are rising. Many may not be able to afford increased taxes based on their retirement income. That's all I have.
Okay, so questions for these candidates running for the one-year selectmen's term? Yes, and you are.
Victoria Garso. I have a question for Matt.
Yeah.
The selectmen board is more than a couple of hours a week. At times, it's 24/7. Can you make the commitment, and are you available on call for anything that comes up for the 24/7?
Yeah, I have the time and willing to donate it.
But you work full-time, right?
Correct.
So how are you gonna do
I
this?
work full time. So for one meetings, I know that's kind of point of contention. I appreciate Chuck's level of research, but I would think we can all agree there's a lot more people who work during the day than at night. So for me as a candidate, I would need the board to work with me to find a meeting time that works. I also believe that's beneficial to the general public. I don't think government should be exclusively for retirees. So it would be at a time that makes sense for a lot more people in my perspective.
Okay, other questions for the candidates? Do we have any, oh, Dave, yes.
Dave Strauss. I've been a member of the budget committee for almost 8 years and attended almost every selectman meeting. It's the first time I've ever seen you, Mr. Sawyer.
Yep.
So my question is directed at you. Why have I not seen you at any public hearings for the budget committee or any of the select board meetings over those 8 years?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't think that many people my age with young families are participating. I frankly had my head in the sand until I gave my career to this career. And I realized that that's problematic. And so the only thing you can do is correct that and get involved. And I'm doing it at 40 versus 65, and hopefully that's welcomed. And if not, like I, grew up a Red Sox fan, there's always next year. So
Other questions for the selectmen's candidates? Do we have any on the Zoom?
Not seeing any hands on Zoom.
I'm shocked.
Come on, you all have something to say on Facebook. Let's go.
Yes.
Again, for you, you work for the town of Ossipee.
Yeah.
Can you state your name?
Dave Garso. Do you see any conflict of interest with
Yeah, I know.
several of the issues that we?
Well, I think there's only one issue, right? And it's the recreation budget. I don't at all. I'm very trained in my career to spot conflicts of interest. Let me assure you, I get no compensation. I'm not on any sales commission. It matters to me not in terms of my income or career in Ossipee. My care for this is truly for families in Effingham. So 100% there is no conflict of interest. There's no compensation. I just care because I care as an Effingham dad and family man. And I don't know of any other perceived conflicts, but if there are, let's talk about them.
So Matt, just following up on the statement you just made,
Yeah,
you're the town administrator of Ossipee.
right.
You're beholden to the selectmen
Mhm.
for your full-time job.
Mhm.
When it comes to the recreation discussion
Yep.
with Effingham, you're gonna have to recuse yourself for conflict. of
Yeah,
interest.
that could be the case, Chuck. I mean, people recuse themselves from a vote if appropriate, and I would do the right thing legally or ethically. But right now, it's not a conflict, and I hope that I wanted there to be a peaceful resolution. You and I have worked together to try to make that happen. I appreciate that partnership. I hope the partnership continues. I'll just say that.
Okay, another question?
Sure.
Any of the three can answer this, I guess.
Let's start with Leo, work the way down.
Okay. Let me get
Let
some-
them all answer.
What are you gonna do to stop the people from moving into our town with their RVs and campers and declaring residency in our town?
This is zoning issue.
Well, it's interesting.
Sorry.
Well, I think we have laws on our books right now for that, for the septic systems and everything else. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I know they need those, but they haven't been enforced, so how are we gonna stop the people
Well, I think with
from
this,
getting the permits?
with the health agency, we established, the select board established this year, or last year, to say, between Dave and Mike. They're supposed to go around, start enforcing all these permits and stuff like that, to enforce ensure that they have the septic systems involved and all that through the RSA, basically. I think, what's her name? Rebecca is gonna be working more on this subject. from my understanding.
Any thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I guess I'm saying that it needs to be zoned in more and paid attention to, and more involvement and knowing what's going on in the town and handling it right then before they move in and putting campers and whatever. I mean, they must have to check and make sure that it's up and legal, and if it's not, then someone needs to take care of that and keep an eye on it.
Can I just follow up on that? Because I know any campers and stuff like that, they have to get a permit from Rebecca.
Right.
For 90 days or whatever time period they're supposed to have it on their property.
And not after they move in.
Right.
Matt, you want to take a shot?
Yeah, I'm not infinitely familiar with the zoning ordinance in Effingham. I actually feel like sometimes zoning can be a hindrance, but that's beyond a zoning issue, right? If you're paying taxes for somebody who doesn't technically live here. But I guess my question would be back to the town clerk's office, who makes the determination, I believe, whether somebody is a resident or not, if they are legally, okay, so it's different in the town I work for, but I guess I would ask, who's making that determination without a certificate of occupancy for that property?
They don't have those in town.
I think the issue is more RVs as a place to live rather than
Well,
whether the residents or not. Yeah.
well, those are two in the same, and by RSA, you can't live in a camper year round, so you cannot declare that's your permanent residence for purposes of the school if you're living in a camper. So somebody's dropping the ball somewhere is my feeling, or there's a perception that that's happening and maybe it's not as bad as you think, but that would warrant further investigation.
Sounds good. Let's go around the room. Yep. We'll start here and then go back to it.
Linda Edwards, I live here in town on Province Lake Road. I think Matt,
Holy cow.
hi, yeah, I'm good. Still living.
Were you his teacher?
Fourth grade, can you imagine? Oh my gosh. For you two, would you be in favor of an evening selectmen meetings?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Back, say who you
My
are.
name is Sarah Schultz from Sunset Road, and I'm a newbie. I've only been here 3.5 years. My concern is not about the people that are moving in across the select, but the people that have left and abandoned their homes and they're starting to deteriorate, like Lord's Hill. Is there, and I don't know who is responsible, if anybody in the town can do something about it, but when I drive up that road and I see the home and where the old, I think they have in there in the tower, it breaks my heart to see it just falling apart and nobody, and from what I understand, it's abandoned. Is there anything that can be done?
Let's start with Matt and go down that way.
So, I mean, if there truly exists a situation where you can justify it as a public health nuisance, you can create an order to vacate, which is legal language for condemning the property. I have plenty of experience doing that. I also wear the health officer hat in the other town I work for. But I don't think that exists if no one is living there. So that would be something you investigate. And then typically if it's abandoned, I mean, it's only a matter of typically 3 years before the property would be tax deeded. And if the town acts swiftly, you can take possession of the home and essentially sell it or auction it and build into the deed a requirement to clean the property up and get it inhabitable again. I just did that process in my day job with a bunch of properties that were a big nuisance for neighborhoods. We took them, we auctioned them off, and we put into the deed that they have to be cleaned up or we're taking them back again.
But is that something that can be done in Effingham as well, or is that particular to Ossipee?
They have to be eligible for tax deeding, meaning they haven't paid their taxes, which usually goes hand in hand with abandonment. And that's a RSA based thing, yeah.
Yeah, I basically was gonna say the same thing. I mean, you know, just. Yeah, I don't know a lot about that part, and I'll be honest, but I'm willing to look into it.
No, go ahead. Just, no, I'm on the same question. I guess I just want to know if it was a code.
Okay, so, yeah, I know, but, so
Let him finish. He was
Yeah,
looking at me
it's
winking. I
the
don't know if he
other
wanted me to
turn.
talk or not.
I'm just giving you a wink.
Oh,
Yeah, we do, I know the town has taken over properties after 3 years of tax and everything else. On this case with Lord's Hill, the guy's paying his taxes. So we can't confiscate the building or anything like that. So as far as anything, as long as the guy's paying his taxes, the windows are not broken, there's not much we can do. Right.
It's heartbreaking to see it.
Oh, I know.
I would want to see it.
So,
We
we have
had
a
a
question.
reminder that there was that
He
email
pays his
question.
taxes.
Oh, okay, yes. I thought maybe we had a good answer on this one, but, so this question was emailed in and I asked it of Chuck and it's from Gregory Wallace. And it has to do with liability risks. Would you require any town employee or persons acting on the town's behalf to have a driving record check, criminal background check, work history? Okay, everybody, silence your phones. Before they can work for the town, so. Matt.
My answer would be yes, other than that driving history isn't necessarily required for all jobs, so it would be job specific. Bigger towns don't do that necessarily unless it's job specific. Background check, absolutely.
I would say background check, absolutely, and make sure that they have all that's required to do the job for the town.
Not a problem. Anything you
Looks like
want.
it's unanimous.
Open up.
All right,
Never
I'm
had
not
a ticket.
asking this one. I have a question for you. So you're running for, to fill out the final year of a 3-year term, so you'll be in office for 1 year. A lot can happen in a year, but as of today, do you think you would run for the full 3-year term in a year? Start here, Matt?
I don't know, we'll see. That's my honest answer. I'm not retired and I do respect the question you have. I think I can make it work, but I'm not gonna make any promises.
Okay.
And
Vickie?
I would say yes, I would, if this year, if I can get through this year. Yeah, I would say yes, I would.
Okay.
I have no problem running 3 years. I mean, I'm retired. I have a lot of background. I've been volunteering a lot of organizations in town, plus, budget committee for the last, since the day for 2014. So not an issue.
Okay, good. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, again, for you, if you have no plans for running again for the next 3 after this term is over, what do you hope to accomplish in 1 year?
Well, again, I'm not saying I won't rerun, but already tonight we've seen a situation where somebody said you weren't gonna rerun, now you're running. I'm not gonna get boxed into that. Let's get through a year. You don't have to train me. I work for the selectmen every day to do this job full time. Give me a year and let's see how it goes. That's what I'm saying.
Other questions? Yes, Chris.
Because this keeps coming up, this question would be for Vickie. Do you feel that this selectman's job is for a retired person?
Let me answer first.
I think he wants.
I don't know who's.
Sorry, I'll go.
Oh,
Start with Vickie.
Pretty sure I know how
He
Matt
said
feels, so.
I'm sorry, say that.
Is
Do
this-
you feel that the select board position or any other elected position in town that takes up so much time that a working stiff like myself can't do it? Do you feel that it's a job just, or jobs just for retired people.
No, I don't think it's a job just for retired people. They're probably more available than someone that has a full-time job. And they can keep up and attend the meetings. I'm just saying that I have the time, I'm willing to do this and step up for you people, and that's why I'm running.
I'm the same way. I mean, a couple years ago, I looked at running for a selectman, but I was working full time and everything else. And with the budget and everything else, I figured I'll learn the ropes of the town first. And then when I retire, I'll have a lot more time to get involved with all the other aspects within the town and stuff. So, yeah, I think, somebody that's working, they want to run, great. All for it.
Other questions? Anything on the chat or the Zoom?
I don't have any hands
Okay.
raised.
There's one right there.
Our town currently has no animal control officer. So are you all able to assist in any capacity if needed? I mean, chasing goats, dogs in the road,
Horses.
chickens, catching things, getting them out of there before they get become roadkill.
I don't know, we have a police department, we've gone to a new, well, everything's negotiable. I just renegotiated our ACO, Animal Control Officer's contract, and in the other town I work for, and there's a happy medium to be made, so I'm not sure that's a dead issue.
Anybody else want to
Well,
comment?
I'm just gonna say, I'll do anything. And I'm not afraid of anything, so if I have to, I'll do my darndest, even if I have to ride that horse. There you go.
Okay. Leo.
We do have, we did approve it this year. Joe is the dog officer.
Oh, he is now? I'm sorry.
I'll help you, Joe.
All right.
Yeah. Comment about that, not this past year, but the year before, I did have a dog follow me home on my walk, very friendly dog, and I called, unfortunately, 911, who said, next time, don't. Somebody within 15 minutes was there, grabbed the dog, it was my neighbor's dog, she didn't even know it got loose, and I had never seen it loose. So there was somebody there within and he was, I would have kept it. So this wasn't last year, I think it was the year before the word dog officer, so somebody was there within the county, I'm not sure, but it worked out very well.
Sounds good. Okay, so we have budget committee candidates and we have planning board candidates and there's interest in school board candidates. So maybe any other questions for selectmen?
That's a one. Just to follow up on
All right, Mike, and then
just to follow up on the background checks. By statute, do you know what the limit is, a disqualifier for an employee? All candidates.
No, sounds like
I'm
you
sorry,
don't.
I didn't hear you.
What is the disqualifier? If somebody does the background check, you get the information back. What's the threshold? Is there set by statute a threshold for somebody to be refused employment?
I haven't
I
dealt with that
would
yet.
have to look that
I've
up.
been in the same company for 47 years, 7 years. I never had a problem.
all right.
What's the answer, Mike?
The answer is there is none. You would have to make a determination on your own. The state doesn't, in the case of the health officer, for example, they don't have a standard. So it'd be, you'd have to decide. Maybe there's one speeding ticket. Maybe that's the answer. It would be up to the select.
Pretty subjective.
Very
Yeah.
subjective.
Fair enough.
All right. Melissa, you had a question?
I think it's great, not the circumstances under which it happened, but I think it's great that we have the opportunity to have a 1 year. Because it opens it up for people to give it a try, rather than only having 3-year terms, so that someone would have to commit not knowing what they're getting into. So I thank you all for taking, unfortunately, the way it came about wasn't the greatest, but
Right.
it's here, and thank you all for running. I run the Effingham Connect Facebook group, and one of the things that comes up is, why don't we just take care of our own? So as far as, it came up during the OSPI rec discussion, and why don't we have our own rec? Well, Effingham has never been on its own. We rely on cooperative agreements for police, fire, ambulance, rec, the food pantry.
How do you feel about that Effingham being on its own?
With the rec program.
With any, with
With
all,
anything,
with anything?
yeah.
You think we can handle it? And if not, how would you work to maybe even enhance the cooperative agreements that we have in those areas with other communities?
I mean, yeah, if you're looking at all options like the ambulance, the rec program and everything else. I mean, just the cost of us to have our own ambulance, staff it, full-time people and everything else. We'd be paying a lot more than, I think it was $125 a year. Yeah, we're getting a bargain. I think we are. And as far as the rec center, to maintain, we don't have a town department that can maintain fields, baseball fields. We don't have a basketball court, and so just the cost of putting that in place and having the cost of having coaches and everything else, volunteers to come in, if we can get the volunteers to come in and do that. I know my kids, I paid. I mean, we had the facilities, but we still had to pay to play for the program. But this area, I guess, you know, with the Ossipee, I guess we can't do that. I mean, we did have discussions with the budget committee on that subject, but it was not approved. Ossipee wouldn't approve it. To have, you know, based on income with the parents and stuff like that, can we sort of like, okay, if parents are making $100,000, can they contribute a certain amount of money to the program? So, but that was no discussion on that. It was a closed meeting. So that's my thing.
Well, I'm gonna say that you need the people from the community to help out when you're talking about volunteering for fire department and police department. We're going to other towns already, trying to get people to help here. Even just for signing up to run for any of these, the budget committee, whatever, you hardly had anybody involved. So it's like if someone says, I'll run for it, but I need help, which I'm one of those. I'm not saying I know everything. I don't know a lot, but I'm willing to learn. Oops, excuse me. I'm willing to learn. And as far as the rec department, I would really like to see the kids go. But I don't want to see anyone losing their homes, prices of gas going up, food's gone up, health has gone up, medicine has gone up. People haven't been paying their taxes because they can't afford them. You have to weigh all these options. Like, does someone lose their home so that some kids can go to a rec department? There's got to be another alternative to get money from something else to fund this.
Matt,
Yeah, well, so I'm a pretty staunch fiscal conservative, but with all due respect, I don't think your average person with a $200,000 house, I would hope, is not going to lose it for $18 a year more, which is roughly what the tax rate equivalent would be of the increase. So, I mean, there's a few things you're going to need if you have a town. I would argue, how many of the people who are opposed to the rec increase have gone to the school board meetings and talked about the fact it costs $18,500 to send every student through, or looked at the bigger picture. When I started in municipal work, everybody warned me that people are going to get really bogged down in the small numbers, and then the $350,000 grader or whatever it is going to go right through. And that's absolutely been a fact. I think there's bigger fish to fry. Yes, I'm biased. I have a kid, but I would also ask for all the people who don't support the rec budget, how many of you had kids that did benefit from a similar program? How many of you had nieces, nephews, grandkids now, whatever it is? I'm a very staunch fiscal conservative, but I don't even, and let me also say, you can even begin with a part-time rec director's wage and benefits or salary for $30,000. You certainly can't touch a baseball field. You can't touch even the programming, even the program itself that runs the computer to book registrations is like $3,000 a year. We got a sweetheart deal here for a long, long time. We're still not even being asked to pull our full weight. I wish the budget committee had taken me up on my offer for me to come to those meetings and to speak on their behalf. The notion that this was not a negotiation at all is not really true. And Chuck and I did try to partner to make this happen. So
And the select board did recommend.
and the select board, thank you, did recommend it. And towns partner a lot in other ways too. There are little stretches of roads that Effingham has with Ossipee that it doesn't make sense for Effingham to plow and Ossipee will up in the mountain. We have the same thing with Tuftonboro. If it makes sense for both towns, we help each other out. And the same thing goes for elected officials and appointed officials when they call each other and they collaborate and they help out. And so to answer Melissa's question, I think the partnership is hugely important. You talked about mutual aid, first responders. There's a bigger community here than just Effingham if we want to be a part of it, and I think that we should.
All right, so one more question for Selectmen, and then we're gonna move on, and I will go to somebody who hasn't asked a question. Yes, sir.
Tucker
Your name?
Wentworth, I live on Moody Road. I moved in here about a year and a half ago, first time home buyer. Right before the whole rise of the market and everything else. Grew up around here, all my friends were around here. But I always realized there's not a lot to do in Effingham. And, you know, I know that everything got reappraised and, you know, right off the bat, my taxes went up quite a bit. But I was wondering would it be possible to set up a reserve fund so we could potentially, let's say 5 years, 10 years down the road, have baseball fields, basketball courts, stuff like that? No,
That was tried 15 years ago, and they came to the realization that it's going to be 30, 50, 100 years before that comes to fruition. And so those funds that had started to be saved for that were spent for something else. I mean, it would be great to think about tomorrow, but if it takes 50 years to get there, are you going to give up your kids, to video games, drugs, whatever else it is today? Probably not. I think, municipal budgeting is year to year. You should plan for the future. But I'm not sure we're ready to have that discussion until we figure out what our kids are going to do on March 13th if the rec budget doesn't pass.
Vickie and Leo, do you want to?
I was gonna say, if I remember correctly, I believe we had funds that we were putting aside at one time for a rec department. And I believe that it might have been when Tim Melvin, Jr., Meisner, and whatever, that they decided it wasn't progressing enough, so they moved the funds.
Well, the town would tend to vote.
Well,
Yeah.
right,
Volunteer.
right, but it was during that time
Yeah.
when they were selecting that it was voted to get rid of it.
Okay, that's enough for the selectmen.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
Get yourself
Can't be
sorry.
that
Yeah. See Linda after the show.
Yeah, let's thank our selectmen candidates. Good job, good job. Okay, we're gonna move to budget committee candidates, so everybody running for the budget committee, come on up.
If I could,
Very amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen John.
Okay, so there
John
are
Davis.
4 candidates running for 2 seats. So you can vote for 2 people, but John Davis is not here this evening. Is he on the Zoom by any chance? Audrey? Can you
No, I
tell
haven't
who-
seen Mr. Davis.
Okay, all right, so anyway, John Davis is one of the candidates, and there are 3 others. Rosemary Wissenbacher, am I saying that right? Michael Cahalan and Steve Regal. So 2 minutes. Talk about who you are, why you're running for budget committee. Start right here on the set. Steve.
Steve Regal, been coming up with my wife since the late 70s. And we built a home here back in 2007, and then we retired here about 6 years ago. We made a deal when we were coming up that we weren't just gonna live here, we wanted to become part of the town. With that in mind, both of us have volunteered and do work for EPS. I'm in charge of all the grounds and work with Leo Racine. We take care of all the maintenance of the of Effingham Preservation Society. I'm also involved with the HTH project. And part of that is to do all the work that we don't want to, that we can get done ourselves without having to go out to contractors, saving money that way. My wife and I also run the aluminum can recycling that you've seen at the transfer station. And so we've done that for the past couple of years. The monies from that go directly to HTH. My background is I spent 48 years in the telecom industry, and past 20 of them I was project manager, large projects, small, whatever. I've run crews of men, I've run whole projects, so I'm used to that kind of atmosphere. Also during that time, as part of my responsibilities was to watch out for the budget, watch out for the money that we're going through to keep the job profitable and also keep the customer happy. So I'm familiar with that. I don't know an awful lot about the mechanizations of coming up with the town budget, but I want to participate in it. And I feel that if I work hard enough at it, I think I can be a plus and work for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm Rosemary Wissenbeck. I'm relatively new to Effingham. I was born and raised in Queens, New York, where I raised my 4 children. After moving from New York to Florida and then to Louisiana, I retired up here 3 years ago. During my 3 states of movement, I've been in administration, office management. I've worked in several different venues. I went from church and school, where I worked for many years, to the gaming industry, where I was the accounting person for the trade show and advertising for an international magazine. And from there, left there, and I moved to a union local, and where I was the office manager at a union local. From there, I became office manager, recruiting administration for a blood donation center in Louisiana. I worked there for several years, then retired here. I have always volunteered every community I've been in. I've been in civics and schools, in churches. I've been the treasurer, the auditor, the financial secretary, the recording secretary, youth advisors, teacher, Sunday school teacher. So I've got a lot of volunteering in my blood. I'm a strong person that believes in volunteers. Without volunteers, you really don't have anything. I want to get onto the budget committee. I found it interesting. When we moved here, our taxes increased also. And I said, whoa, I want to know what goes into this budget, because when you go, if you're new and you get your annual report and you look at that budget, I looked at these numbers and I had no idea where anything was from. It was, oh, well, bottom line, vote on it, no, okay, whatever. When you start to really pick apart and look, you can really see how the town is run and what goes into it. And I'd like to be a part of that and help decide where the money should go, what's important for the town, the whole town, to benefit everybody. So that's my reason for running. And I hope you'll make a good decision.
Mike.
I had a background in a few different companies, and I spent a lot of time in Fortune 500 companies, production based. And I retired here about 15 years ago. I have ties to the area that go back from childhood over at Providence Lake, and focusing on town stuff. I came to town meetings, got involved with a little bit of the master plan, and ended up on the Historic District Commission, zoning board, I guess in some fashion or another. I've been associated with the zoning board for about a decade, the same with the planning board. I've been vice chair on both of those boards, chairman of the ZBA, put a lot of changes to the zoning ordinance that I thought were beneficial to the townspeople. together on the planning board. Been a selectman, been a select board chairman, run projects for the town. Focused a lot on budgeting. I've gone to a lot of budget training for municipalities. I've worked with budget committee, selectmen still with taxes, tax rates, the assessing angle and on how to reestablish where we were and kind of slide in there financially for a bit. So I've got a lot of time in on the town. I tend to think I know quite a bit about our finances over the last 10 years, been a student of our operating budget. I think we present now at the town meeting warrant articles using lapsing funds or unassigned fund balance, which is something I introduced recently to try and broaden that. Not that I introduced it initially, but to take the sting out of some of the tax rate that you can walk out of town meeting with when you have big projects. Other than that, I put a lot of time in for the town. Here, I think I can probably help with the budget committee looking at things that maybe could be scrutinized a little bit. That's about it.
Okay, very good. So questions for the candidates for budget committee?
I've got a question, I can see it.
Sounds good. Vickie, I knew you'd have a problem.
This is from my,
No, I didn't see that coming, Vickie. Caught me off guard.
your wife is the treasurer.
Yep.
My question is, do you think it's not a conflict of interest of you being on the budget committee and her being the treasurer?
I don't see how it would be. First off, if you knew Elaine, she's very compartmentalized in her life, but she takes care of her business, and the treasurer's business is pretty much, along with Dave Strauss, the deputy, pretty much it's their business, more or less. When you look at the treasurer's role in the town, they're kind of like the IRS, keeping an eye on the finances of the town, how everything gets processed. Is there anything to be found that should be questioned? Making sure that the numbers add up and that somebody's actually following the numbers. So I really don't have a role or a hand in anything to do with the treasurer. As far as the budget committee goes, I think the two positions are similarly aligned because it's the budget committee's job to do the same thing from a different, coming at it from a different direction. When you start spending money, they question where the money's going. Things are supposed to be categorized by state law in certain ways. You don't take money from one pool or warrant article and start spending it somewhere else and entering it into your ledger over there. And the budget committee gets all that kind of information and go through the process and they say, where's the money going? Where's it being spent? The goal of the budget committee in a lot of ways is to make sure you're budgeting for the things you need to budget for. And if you've over budgeted in another area and it's redundant, it's not doing anything, why tax people for money that you're not utilizing? So it's just a better way of looking at how we spend our money with the budget committee, or making sure that we're not taxing the heck out of everybody when we didn't need to. I mean, my tax bill last year was $10,500. I own one property in this town. So when I got here, and I came in and started seeing what's going on, it was because my assessing bill went through the roof. And it wasn't until took me a couple of years to get the assessing company in, go over to my property, spend time with me and review it. And then it was red ink all over my tax card. So that's when I started saying, we need to pay attention to everything. Everybody should get their tax card.
So we have a
Yeah,
question.
question, I don't know if they didn't hear, they just want you to clarify, isn't it a conflict of interest?
Isn't it?
To have a,
To answer the question that Vickie answered. Sorry, I
Alright.
can scroll back. And so if you repeat your question, Vickie, the person on here.
well, I think he answered it. He said
Okay.
it wasn't a conflict.
I guess I would
They're
ask
two different
anybody to
positions.
say why it is a conflict of interest.
They're
Explain
both-
it to me so that I could probably.
They're both elected positions.
Right.
Okay, yeah. All All right, let's go to other questions.
I just had a question for the moderator. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know who the incumbents are right now. I mean, who the candidates that hold the seats right now that are not running again or who are rerunning.
Nobody's sitting at this table, or John is actually.
You're all
on.
new.
All new.
And who was on the budget committee that, I'm sorry.
I think
Whose position you are on, I thought was not running.
Oh,
again.
Teresa, yeah, and
And
who else?
Leah, are you on it now?
I'm on it for another year.
Oh, okay, okay,
Jay Chris.
And Jay Chris.
And Jay's not running?
Jay's not running.
okay, thank you.
All right, so Teresa and Jay.
Somebody running for selectman and?
Yeah,
No, but he'll step down.
I'll
He'll
step
step
down.
down.
He has
Yeah.
to step down.
He goes on.
Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to know if, I didn't know if you were an incumbent, if you were just
Right,
doing this
is
for the
there
first
another-
time.
So
Okay.
Richard
First time.
Fahey
Okay.
is asking, as a member of the budget committee, how will you level taxes? What expenses will you cut and what costs will you increase?
Let's start over here. Steve, you want to take a shot?
Well, I would think that a lot of delving in and looking at what is there, and then using common sense to decide what's the best for the town of Effingham, as opposed to what the budget numbers would be. I don't believe that there's a simple answer of how to do it. That's why there's so many different people on the budget committee. It's not just a budget person, it's a budget committee, because you can get a lot of ideas and a lot of different perspectives together, and hopefully the answer is going to reflect what's best for the town. That's what I want to try to help do, is to just use any of my, well, my wife would disagree, my common sense and, you know, and experience that I've had, you know, working, you know, in the communication industry with people and whatever. And, you know, everybody has a different agenda and whatever. But I think once you're on the budget committee, you only have one agenda, and that's to try to keep a hold on the tax rate, but at the same time, do what's best for the town. And that's how I would go at it.
I agree with Steve, and I would probably do it the same way. You have to look at every single budget. You have to look at every item. You can't just say, oh, well, so-and-so's got a budget, let's say, so-and-so's got a budget for $2,000, and some of those items may be a little outrageous, but they keep the same budget as $2,000. Well, you can look at that and say, well, you know, really, do you really need 1,300 peanut butter bars? You know, looking at every item in every budget and seeing where maybe you can trim and seeing where other things are needed. There are a lot of areas that this town might need more money put aside for infrastructure or things that go down any of our roads, which we've been tackling. You know, maybe there could be more money put aside for main things like that. Cell tower, getting better reception so that the library can have more programs. I mean, the library has done a fantastic job. If we can continue to help fund these things that will really affect and benefit the entire community, not just a small portion. So it's going to take time. I have looked at some of these budgets. I've gone to every meeting since COVID lifted. I've been to every selectman and every budget meeting, and I'm finding it interesting, the different line items that we have that I've questioned and that I've looked at and gotten answers for. Some of the answers I don't agree with. Some of the answers I do. I mean, obviously, I'm just in public at this point. But I would question, and I think that's what I would do best to try to level everything.
Sounds good, Mike.
Well, working with the selectmen when they come in with warrant articles, so that's a big part of things. Identifying projects that should be supported and that they're comprehensive and there won't be money left just thrown away. You're going to get something for your dollars. I've been bringing right now the select board a number of options for grants. One of the things we just experienced was the Bailey Road culvert. It's going to cost more because construction costs have gone up considerably. I've been talking with somebody at DES for new ARPA funding that's coming available. It's in development stages. And so I reached out to let this individual know that our town has a shovel-ready project. There's $1.2 million coming available. And these people right now are writing the criteria for funding. So to let them know that we have a project down at Province Lake that forms the South River, and that there's money available, that they've already spent money in grants for that lake in several projects. If we are continuing to work on that, we have public support, we have a plan, we have an engineered plan, we have a contractor now that's we've selected. It'll go to town meeting, and if you folks vote to support it, then with that, we'll have all the mechanisms in place to be a candidate for some of this money. We won't get 1.2 million, but we might be able to get the $50,000 that we've seen the increase because of this last year in construction cost. Also, it's the same thing with a couple of months back, I was in contact with USDA, where we got the Snow Road Bridge money. There's a $50,000 grant available for infrastructure on transfer stations. Now, it doesn't target the kinds of things we're looking at our transfer station, but I reached out and I talked to them and I outlined a plan that we've been putting together a few years back. And they said they'd fund it. And it's basically bringing it forward with a plan to the town's voters, with everybody already in line, the contractor and all the design. So that's $100,000. Will the selectmen work with that? Will they pursue it? Will they team up with individuals like myself or somebody else in this audience? That's part of the process. Also, you look at things where we're spending money where you might say, there might be a better way to do something. Right now, I'll give you just an example off the top. We contract with NRRA. They're a recycling company. They're a facilitator to have things recycled. We have our metal that gets picked up and we get money back on that. There's a shipping fee, $175 that takes a container out, and then we get a per ton price. It's a commodity, so it goes up and down. I would suggest to the selectmen that they look at some of the local scrappers that we have in the area, some of the larger companies, to see if we can get a better price, because we could probably get a much better price for hauling that material. But there's other things. You might look at the way a police department does business. Joe over there now has one hybrid car. It's cutting his fuel cost. Is that working out, Joe? If you're going to make another purchase, we put money away every year for a new cruiser because there's a rotation. And then Joe might want to buy just a gas vehicle, and the discussion should ensue. How much money were we saving? Was this a good purchase? How reliable was the vehicle? Did it do meet those needs? So exploring what we're spending money on is a big thing. There's something I like to call a sub account. So when they enter things in QuickBooks, there's a breakdown behind there that shows where the money goes under those line items. You've got to put everything in there that should be in there and not put things in there that shouldn't be, because then you're inflating lines. You go by, as Rosemary said, you go by line by line by line. And the more detailed information you can get, the more you can narrow down where your money's going and if it's being spent effectively.
All right, thanks. So we have planning board candidates to hear from. Any other questions for budget committee? Good. Well, thank you all, and appreciate you running. Planning board.
It's not contested.
Oh, it's not contested?
No,
it's not. Oh, okay, two people are running for two seats. Sorry. Pit them against each other. All right, so that's the only other. So we have candidates for the school board here. Let's see, Jessica Williams, Brody, Brody's here. Is Jessica here? All right, want to come up? She's also running for the board. Yeah, but then you guys are running.
We could fit just the same time.
Yeah, but I don't want to confuse people about.
Okay, that's fine. Understandable. How are you? Good to see you.
Hey, again, all right, let's.
Why is it made up there?
This is Jessica Williams and Brody Shea. They're running for. All right, everybody. They're running for the at-large school board seat. The other seat is just the Effingham seat. So the at-large seat, everybody in the school district votes for. Right? So 2 minutes, who you are, why you're running.
Of course.
Okay, great. My name is Jessica Williams, and I have 2 children in the Governor Wentworth Regional School District schools. I may be best known as one of the most vocal opponents of some of the school board's actions over the last couple of years. But what that means is that I've actually put a lot of my personal time and effort into what's going on in our schools. I've taken it upon myself to research the law. I've taken it upon myself to talk to the curriculum director and go over the assessment in its entirety. I have spoken to the superintendent. I have worked with that school more so than what one would see during the school board meetings. So I have been there. I have shown up. I'm there because my kids are there. My children are successful children. My daughter is an honor student. She's on the student council. She's actually the school board representative for the student body. Very proud of her. She's had a pretty easy time through school. She doesn't struggle with school. My son is a different story. So I've had more difficulty with him, and I actually homeschooled him for several of the months that the kids were in the hybrid remote option, because he's very fidgety, he needs to move, and I was sort of appalled at what I found when I was homeschooling him. I didn't really know what was going on, and I felt guilty about that. But I also was like, okay, I have a challenge in front of me. So I homeschooled my own child, and I worked full time. So I had to homeschool him from 7 a.m. until 10, then go to work all day, and then homeschool him, make him lunch and homeschool him during lunch. And it was hard. But I insisted on having him tested before and after my homeschooling work, and found that I was able to raise his math score by 40 points, which put him from a below proficient student to an above proficient student. And then the can of worms really opened. So we had the COVID issue, which we're still dealing with. But we also have an assessment issue or a learning issue in our schools. And I'm not sure if anyone in this room is aware, but 60% of our students are below proficient mathematics. So unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I've seen our school board fail to address this over and over and over. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm on the school board. I'm a numbers person. I'm a data person. I'm never afraid to stand up. I don't care if somebody doesn't like me. I do not seek any political donations. I have no ambitions for a future political career. No offense to you, but I would not dare to do that for you. But I'm there to stand up for the kids, whether it's popular or not. So that's what you're going to get from me. It may not always come out as being soft and fluffy. That's not who I am. I am an abrasive person. I'm an honest person. I'm a straight talking person, and I mean what I say. So I'm Jessica. I'm running for the at-large position, and I hope that you can vote for me.
Thank you. Brody, your turn.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet all of you on this great evening. My name is Brody Deshays. I'm running for school board member at large in the Governor Wentworth Regional School District. I may be young, but I do not lack experience. I served on the school board as a non-voting student member from 2016 to 2017. I have previous experience serving on the school board in working relationships with all current board members. I have working relationships with our school administrators, talking to them and working with them regularly, talking to them about legislation in Concord, and talking with them about current school board policies. I currently serve as one of Wolfborough's 2 state representatives. As a state representative, I'm the clerk of the Carroll County delegation, making me third in line of command at county convention. The Carroll County delegation is our county's budget committee, consisting of counties 15 state representatives. We approve of all Carroll County spending and help formulate an operating budget. Also down in Concord, I'm on the State Federal Relations and Veterans Affairs Committee, and the speaker will be appointing me soon to a second committee, the Legislative Administration Committee. This is a testament to the hard work I do for the people of our communities, whether it's in Wolfboro or as an at-large member, every community, all 6 towns that I would be serving. As a former student in the district, I have a passion for improving and perfecting our public education. As Jessica noted, we do have an issue with making sure that students are proficient at their grade level. This is something that I want to address. We need to emulate what other school districts are doing across the state. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? We just need to do outreach. I think a huge issue that's facing our school district right now, because now that New Hampshire DHHS says we don't need masks in school anymore as of today in the governor's announcement, and as of the school district ending the mask policy, and that will be done, no more masking as of March 7th. We need to look forward. We need a plan for how to solve learning loss. I believe we should use the ESSER funds that we're getting from the federal government to create after-school programs for students who are identified at not being at grade level. We should create comprehensive summer programs for parents to choose to send their kids to if their kids are not at learning level, so they can work with teachers over the summer. We need to use some of that ESSER funds to make sure that teachers are trained to deal with not only the learning loss and how to handle that, but also some of the trauma that's been caused by students who, quite frankly, haven't been in a classroom for years, right? I mean, we have kindergartners, right? People who, when COVID started, when they were in kindergarten, or they were about to start kindergarten the following year, they've never been in a classroom. And so we need teachers to be trained and ready and to continue improving our public education to handle this. I understand the struggles of what it means to be a teacher. My father was a teacher for 15 years, right? He started as a stay-at-home father. He was a teacher. And right now we need to really be supporting our teachers and supporting our children, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. Children need our help. They're struggling right now in the classroom, and we need someone with the fortitude and the leadership who's proven it, whether it's in Concord or locally, to really get the job done, to work with people, to collaborate and have everything properly done. I also think fiscal restraint's a huge issue on the school board, right? And as someone who's actually proven and cut property taxes in Concord, I want to bring that to the school board. I want to update the evaluation, the property tax evaluation for the school. I feel as if communities like Effingham, a number of communities that are smaller, you guys get the short end of the stick. We're basing it off of a formula from 1964. The economy has changed, right? Our local areas have changed, and we need to address this, right? People are getting kicked in the teeth with property taxes. I get it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing too. Me and my girlfriend, we want to raise a family in the school district. Right now, as the school district looks, even when I was there, even when she was there, when we first met, and now when we're buying property in the town of Tuftonboro, we're negotiating a P&S agreement right now. But we want a district that we can be proud of, that we know that when we raise our kids through it, like a lot of you did, that our kids are going to go on and have a better life than us, that they're going to go on and be contributors in this community. So again, I'm Representative Brody Deshays. I'm running for school board member at large, and I hope to earn your vote on March 8th, because we need to move together stronger. We need kids to be better educated. We need to ensure that people and parents are respected. Thank you.
Thank you both. So just for my own knowledge, neither of you is on the school board right now, right?
No,
So
not currently, no.
who's not running it yet? So it's somebody's not.
Krista, my former,
Oh, Krista.
yeah,
okay.
my former
Yeah.
civics teacher in middle school passed away of COVID.
Yeah.
And so she was going to run, but God bless her. She was wonderful.
She was. Yeah. Well, thank you both for running. Questions for these candidates? Yes, sir.
So you want to bring them to summer school, more learning. But then you have to incorporate either parents taking time out of their day to bring them there, that or you're putting into a bus route, add more onto the district's payroll. Then in the long run, you're raising the money that we put in, that's fine. But it's just, it's a hard balancing act.
Yeah, I hear what you're asking. And so you're talking about, the costs that we're going to have to assume as a school district to be able to address that. You have to remember the federal government has given us a 3-stage ESSER funds, right? The elementary, secondary school relief, right? And so these ESSER funds, specifically the third group, which is going to be millions of dollars, that the school board is going to be starting to formulate that budget going forward, right? Whoever's elected is going to be formulating that budget. I've worked on the county formulating multi-million-dollar budgets, right? We've addressed, the CARES Act money that we've gotten for the county to try to get it out to communities and to spend out the county to decrease your property taxes. My goal would be to use every single dollar of that ESSER money to make sure that your kids, that the learning loss that they've had is at a minimum recovered, and if not, make it so then we can use that money to make sure that they can exceed into the future.
Just a minute, wait a minute.
Yeah, well, he got about 5 minutes to introduce himself. And I
Well,
just respect
okay,
it.
but I'm the moderator, we should respect that. Have you finished answering that?
Well, and I just want to, obviously the money will run out, but the ultimate goal is to use those federal dollars without increasing property taxes, right? We can use those federal dollars to defray that cost and to make sure that the learning loss is made up.
Okay, so you want to answer that question?
I do, because all those ESSER funds, the school board actually has, is still taking public comments on those ESSER funds. It's like $6.5 million for the stage 3. And the only discussion that they've had in public has discussed an HVAC system. And if you look at their application online, it says it right there that they're going to do summer school. They're going to spend a lot of that money on the HVAC system, which I think is wrong. As a child in the system, that they're going to spend more money on an HVAC system than they are going to be recovering my child's learning loss for the last 2 years.
Is that an HVAC system for the high school or is that for?
So this is not a back and forth conversation, so let's, if you.
I just want people
Let's
to
let her
know
finish answering.
what's actually
and then we
happening
can ask more
is that we
questions.
have things that we have on our wish lists that, you know, we wish that all these kids can do this and that and the other thing, but that's not actually what's happening. And that's why I'm upset, because it is not what's actually happening in our schools. This money, these ESSER funds are being used on infrastructure projects because they can, because they're allowed to. So if you go to my website, gwrsd.com, it goes over the ESSER funds. It links to how those monies can be spent. It goes over all of the things that we're talking about here today. So I'm not going to go over my entire platform here, but these funds, these ESSER funds, are being used in, I'm not going to say nefarious ways, but it's over $10.5 million that's been given to our district to use on different things that our children need. Now, some of these monies have to be used towards learning loss. Now, our school district is calling it unrealized learning or something like that. Now, they've changed the language, so it's not learning loss anymore. It's something a little more palatable. And 20% of that money has to go to learning loss, period. But I do not agree with summer school programs. They're not going to cut them out. It's not going to work. My kid's in high school. She can't go to, she's already lost it.
All right, other questions? Yeah.
How long will this federal money last?
Well,
And
this,
who's on the hook
the
after
federal,
that?
so to my understanding, the ESSER funds last until 2024, you have to spend it, right? So we have, well, 2021 is when the first, kind of the phase 1, the phase 2 came in.
So
Phase 3 is
after
coming
that,
in. Yeah, well, and so.
Towns would be on the hook for any expenditure that we've already committed to and.
Mhm. No, that's,
So.
yeah, well, so the
So
ultimate
are,
thing.
so are these funds for recovering learning, would the program end?
Yeah,
Or would they?
I mean, once, I
Okay.
mean, you know, and then there would be another evaluation too that we would need to say, you know what, how, because another thing too is we don't want to just start a program for the sake of starting a program, right? We want to measure if it's successful, right? And so if we did this for 2 years and said it wasn't successful, we'd have to, you know, divert that money and try to figure out another way, right, to spend it.
I
So,
think if there was even one child left behind, I think parents are gonna be up in arms.
No, I
wondering
know.
Why we're canceling the program. But
I do, because I asked a specific question at a school board meeting. I said, because I know that they're hiring additional, for instance, there's gonna be a math supervisor or a consultant that they bring in and a reading consultant. And I asked, are you gonna be hiring any new positions? And they said, no, that these aren't new full-time positions. But if you look, these positions are over $100,000 a year paid positions. So we kind of know what happens in government. Once it gets bigger, it never gets smaller. So once you bring these people in, they're in. You're not just gonna fire them, say, okay, thanks, you're done now, because it's gonna take more than 2 years. It's gonna take more than until 2024 to fix this problem. It's going to be a never-ending problem. So we have kids in kindergarten that are gonna go through the system that have been harmed by this, so.
Okay, Steve, you have a question?
Yes, Brady, part of what Jessica, Brody, sorry.
thank you.
Part of what Jessica was saying rings with me. It didn't sound good coming out of your mouth saying, if they give you all this money, like, we gotta spend it all. Well, what you're gonna do is you're gonna hire more teachers, more supervisors to get into positions allegedly to take care of the kids' learning. Then when the money's gone, they're still there. That's what I'm worried about. I don't particularly like the idea of, if you get a budget, you have to spend every nickel of it, no matter what it's for. That's what it sounded like you were saying, because it'll go away. Well, if you don't have anything legitimate that's gonna have a long-term benefit, why even invest anything in that? But you're saying it doesn't matter, just spend the money. I don't like that attitude, I'm sorry.
No, and I can hear that. So yep. So here's one thing that we've learned about doing, you know, spending a lot of this CARES Act money at the county is that this money, it rolls back into the federal government and they will give it to other municipalities, right? This money will fold back into the federal government's budget. So no matter what, there's no way to get the money back into our community unless we spend it, right? Unless we're trying to hire people locally to address this learning loss. And I think the best.
But I'm saying, is, you're saying, take that money, build an infrastructure with new teachers and new supervisors for those teachers and all these specialists that are coming in, just bloat the top of the, the management bubble with only a few teachers below it. Then when the money's gone and no more money's coming in, they're still there. They're not gonna go away. How are you
Okay,
gonna get
so-
rid of them?
Yeah.
I think we got the point there. and
Yeah, I would, no, I would.
Just address that
yeah.
and then we'll go to.
No, I would, and I'd just like to clarify that. I mean, there's ways to bring in people temporarily, right? It's something that's very regularly done in a number of local governments, right? I mean, I assume your community has brought in people temporarily for things. You guys have put things out to bid into contract and stuff. And there's way for the school district to utilize these funds without it becoming a recurring cost. And that would be a huge goal of mine. I think the biggest thing that we've forgotten is that in-person learning is so important. And to assume that we can solve learning loss without increased in-person learning, without improving curriculum, without finding a way to make it so then kids that are behind in specific subjects can get that extra personal care from instructors. And a lot of the time, it wouldn't necessarily mean that we're hiring new people, but we're hiring the teachers that we already have. We're just asking folks, hey, you already work for the school district. You're already someone who, is a strong with elementary math. Could you, do one day a week, with some of the students that are behind? And so it's about being smart, using the personnel that we currently have, using the dollars that are currently at our expense and not giving it back to Washington. That's the last thing I want to do, is give those dollars back to Washington. I want to keep them here. I want to keep working with the teachers here. And I want to make sure that every child that's behind can be brought back up to date on their learning with our current faculty.
All right, so let's give Jessica a few minutes to answer that and move
I
on.
mean, I'm not opposed to spending the money, but I don't want it spent on fluffy projects. They talk about building a big solar park, maybe here in Effingham or something like that. We've harmed our children. Our children are falling behind. The assessment, the assessment that came out for 2021 clearly shows that we've had a downward decline. We also have a falling enrollment, a trend of falling enrollment in the district. So the cost per student is going to go up. We need to really start looking at spending right now, especially where the federal government has just printed trillions of dollars, eroding the value of the dollars in your pocket right now. Everything's going to get very expensive. I'm not opposed to spending the money on recouping learning for our kids, but if I could bring up my child's math scores, 40 points in my free time with a whiteboard, I don't think we need to hire a $100,000 specialist to do it.
All right, one more question for this group. Lawrence, you haven't asked a question.
You mentioned the formula. Was there any talk about going with 100% evaluation?
You mean 100% like basing off the 100%
Well, there was a
pupils, or
study
basing
done.
off of the property valuation? Just basing it
Property.
off of.
I think he means property.
Well, I believe right now it's a 75-25%. I'd have, the biggest thing would be working with your town administrators, working with your budget committees to understand how the evaluation, how we can change it to make it so then, because it's going to take all 6 towns to really look at how to make it more fair how it currently is. I'm not sure if making 100% would necessarily be more fair for your community or even for Wolfboro, Tuftonboro, et cetera, or if making it 100% based on students would be more fair. But I think we need to make it more fair, right? It's something we need to explore. It's something that we owe to you as taxpayers. And it's just, there's not a lot of things we do in government that's 50 years old that we keep doing it the same way, right? And a lot of those things that we do leave untouched for 50 years, they tend to be broken. And I think that's, our current formula right now, it's a little bit broken. So it's something that I think we need to strongly address and consider.
Jessica, you want to take on that question?
I'm not sure exactly how that sounds nice, but I'm not sure how that actually works for a school board member. I don't think we set the valuation.
Not the valuation, but the formula.
Yeah, the formula.
used
For calculating.
But I don't think we're really calculating exactly because there's a state portion and there's a town portion. So there's a certain amount that you can't go down.
Our town portion, there's a formula based on the number of students you send
Right, I
and the
understand
property evaluation. So that's how we know so some towns, it's based off of, disproportionately,
That's why they pay
students.
$18,500 per student in Effingham, but only 15 or something in Wolfboro.
And so my point is we need to make it more equal so then everyone's paying about the same amount for every student, right?
All right, We got another set of school board candidates.
They can wait.
To
Come on. Let's beat up the
7 o'clock, we haven't had dinner yet.
Jessica, I didn't say where you're from.
Okay. Any final comments from the two candidates?
I just asked where she resides.
What
I
town,
didn't hear.
what towns do you live
I
in?
know Brody's from Tufton, well, almost Tuftonboro, right? You
Well,
said.
I'm in Wolfboro right now. I'm looking at land in Tuftonboro, and I
Okay.
just want to say one last thing is this isn't about furthering any political career. I have no desire to run for another office. I'm not even, I ran for this the biggest reason. I called up our former chair, Stacy Trites, and because I had understand that Chris had passed away, and we had talked for a while, and we tried to see, who we could find to run, and eventually, I decided that I would run because I really have an investment in trying to make sure our community is the best it can be. I want to do what's right by people. I have a rule as a state rep. I get back to everyone within 48 hours. And that's something you'll have my word on. If anyone contacts me, I'll get back to you within 48 hours. I want to do it for you. I want to do it for the children. I want to make sure that we can improve our test scores in this district. And I think we can. I think there's a lot of potential. We got to move forward.
Jessica, you want to wrap it up?
Sure.
So what
So,
town?
I currently live in Wolfboro. I actually own
Thank
and
you.
operate a business in Wolfboro, and I have owned and operated my practice for 18 years. I'm in the medical field, and I also used to live in Ossipee, so. Yeah.
Okay. Any final comments? that you wanna add?
No, I
No.
wish, no, I wish
He
Brody
did.
the best
I
of
was
luck.
giving you the-
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you both for sticking with us tonight. Thank you. The other two candidates for the Effingham seat are Jim Pittman and Amy Williams.
Yeah, the school board, the Effingham school board.
Oh, yeah.
Who has that now?
Jim's got it.
Jim Pittman,
Oh,
and he's running for moderator too. right?
Yeah.
So
Opposed?
Jim is running for reelection and Nate is running for
Yeah,
opposing.
running.
Okay.
So 2 minutes each, who you are, why you're running for the school board. Jim?
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and welcome everyone. I am the incumbent school board member from Effingham. I've been on board for a couple of years now. Took over for the previous person who moved out of the district. And it was never on my radar to be in the school board. And then I was. So it's been a real big learning curve for me. My quick bio here is I've lived in Effingham for 15 years, originally from Connecticut. And yes, I am retired. I retired last year, worked for a medical device manufacturer, about 3,000 employees in the United States and Costa Rica. And so now supposedly I have a lot of spare time. So as Susan may have also mentioned, will be on the ballot for town moderator, so let Susan have a rest. I'm also the chair of the ZBA currently, and for the last 10 years, been the treasurer of the Friends of the Effingham Library. Yeah, to say that there's been a lot going on in our regional school district over the last few years would be a vast understatement. It used to be a sleepy undertaking to try to get people to serve on a school board. Now, anybody who's watched the news, particularly since COVID has become part of our lives, has seen school boards at the eye of the storm. And it's no secret that everybody's been affected. We're talking students, we're talking parents, we're talking everybody who touches the school system. So when we're looking forward to what's going to be post-COVID, there's still some big things, and some of them have already been discussed. We have underperforming student scores. Now, that's not really let's blame the teacher or let's blame the school system. But there's a lot of dynamics at work here. In the last year, we've had 30 teacher vacancies throughout the district that we've not been able to fill. We cannot fill them because, like everywhere else in this country, you cannot hire teachers. It's an epidemic of people who are not going into the field of education, people retiring out, people just saying, I've had enough of this. And we cannot simply say, hire more teachers. because they're not there to be hired. So that means, okay, what are we gonna do to address that? There's gonna have to be some creative solutions, and I don't have the answer. These are some of the challenges that we're gonna be facing. I don't want to dig into the ESSER question again. It's actually a fairly complicated thing, but it's temporary money. It doesn't last forever. It's a 3-year program. Yes, there's millions of dollars. Federal government has put very stringent requirements of what you can use it for. So everyone, pretty much when they hear about it, says, "Yeah, our taxes are going down." Well, federal government says, no, you can't do that. But they are supposed to be COVID related. And, there's a lot of discussion about, well, what's the best way to spend those dollars? And the board and the administration worked hard to try and make the most of that money. And as was mentioned previously, it's use it or lose it. So let's use it. And that's what we've been working on. In my time on the board, I've been elected vice chair of the board. I also serve on the finance committee. I also serve on building and maintenance. We know we have a $58 million annual budget, and everybody's taxes, of course, are impacted in a big way by the school system. But it's public education. And public education, we know we have to do it for our children. And we have a wonderful school district. Our reputation around the state is wonderful. And why do I know that? Well, in many ways, I know recently, as I've served on the superintendent selection search committee, people may have heard that our current superintendent is going to be retiring at the end of the school year. And so we've had to go out and look for candidates, just like teachers. Very difficult to find qualified candidates for superintendent of schools. You can't just hire anybody. Now, fortunately, we've identified a couple of big candidates. We're tomorrow going to be making the final selection on our new superintendent. And that person, I believe, and the board agrees, is going to be highly qualified and will carry forward the district into all those areas that need to be done. So it's a big subject. I can't really talk about it in 2 minutes.
So that was a long 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Nate, I will give you a little bit longer 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nate Williams. I welcome the opportunity to represent the parents, students, and residents of Effingham and the rest of the district. Having lived and grown up in the district, as well as being a father of an Effingham elementary student, I feel I have a vested interest in finding and continuing what's best for the schools, the children, and the communities as a whole. As a parent over the past few years, I've seen, the importance of the student, parent, and teacher relationship and how that it impacts the child's learning ability. By 18 years as a public servant in the fire department, rising from firefighter to deputy chief, I've learned many important skills that I think are important characteristics such as integrity, servitude, dedication, flexibility, and adaptability, and being a team player. Free from typical agenda of most elected officials, I believe that I can provide a valuable insight to the board. As a my full-time job as a mechanical engineer, I have built my skills in problem solving, being fiscally responsible for projects and timelines, effectively communicating complex problems, transparency, and know the importance of a good education. After serving 1 year for the town of Effingham zoning board, I've had the opportunity to see many aspects of public life and have been involved in a few projects which piqued my interest in local politics. Leading a school district into the next decade will require a strong, educated, and responsible group of individuals. The Governor Wentworth Regional School District historically has provided a fine education to many young men and women who have gone on to do great things in the communities. I'm excited at the prospect of being able to work with the board and the district to keep our schools providing the high level of education that we are all accustomed to. And now just a couple, a little more about me. I guess my background is my dad and sister are both teachers, so I do know and understand the value of the teachers and the relationship between the teacher and the students, as well as I this year actually had the opportunity to start an after-school program for the kids at Effingham. I run a FIRST Robotics Lego League for the kindergartners this year. So I had the opportunity to do that. So I was really able to get into the school and really see, see the hard job the teachers have during the day to keep, 1 hour was plenty of time to keep kids entertained. But so, my hats definitely go out to them. But the importance of education and the children in this district that really, need a good education.
All right, let's go with questions. Questions for these candidates. Yes,
I
sir.
got a question for Jim first and then Nate after. In regards to the school board, whose voice is most important?
The voice.
Yeah.
The communities.
Okay. I only ask because I've gone to a bunch of school board meetings and it's as if the parents are being silenced at all of them. The school board listens to the questions maybe, and then doesn't respond because they don't have to. And I think that there should be some fixes there where the school board needs to come back and talk to the teachers. I mean, sorry, not the teachers, the parents, and answer the questions. Now, obviously you can't answer all of them, but it seems that none are being answered, so.
I think the parents are most important, right? Because as a parent of two children, one in school this year, who actually was a kindergartner when COVID started, and she did her first year as a hybrid, which was, that's why I love teachers so much. But I think parents are important, especially in a young child's life, because it's our responsibility to grow our child to be who they are and who they're going to be. It's our job to protect them, medically, all those things. So I think and we're taxpayers, right? That's the biggest thing. We're the ones that it's our money, right? I pay taxes in this town. They go, I see them go up too, and I don't like it either. But it's our job as a parent, to with a relationship with the school to make sure that we I think that's one of the biggest things my father and my sister have always said to me, that 100% the parents they love, their kids they love the best are parents that are involved, right? And the students that tend to have a more difficult problem in school or less involved are the less involved parents. And I think the more parents get involved in a kid's education, I think the better the outcome they're going to have in the future and go on to do great things. So.
Very good. Any other questions for these candidates? Yes.
Since you would both, well, one of you will be the Effingham representative, and there's been talk about the formula. Did either one of you want to address how the formula is currently affecting the taxpayers and
Sure, I can go
Effingham?
first, sure. So, I tried to get a little more information on the formula, because I went through the report, the giant school report of the year, and I was really confused. I thought, we weren't really getting a good deal because Middleton, it seemed like Middleton was getting a better deal because they tuitioned their kids in the government local school district. So I reached out to Jack, who's the currently the head of the board, and he explained to me the formula. So it's a 25-75 split, which they talked about, but actually, so what it breaks down for us is, so Effingham actually pays about $14,500 per student. And then because of the formula, and if you look at a town like Tuftonboro, because of the evaluation, they pay $29,000 a person per pupil. So if you compare the two with the current formula, Effingham's getting a heck of a deal, but almost half the price of what a Tuftonboro kid is paying, but so because the formula didn't work out when I said, because you look at the whole, how many kids we send to the district and stuff, and it didn't make sense at $1,900 or $19,000. I think that's what the current rate is, but Freedom pays about $26,000 just to put the kids in school. So just a.
All right, Jim, you want to get into the formula?
Yeah, I would say, you've made the point there that Effingham is the beneficiary of communities like Wolfboro and Tuftonboro. Earlier, the question was asked, well, should we go alone on various things? If we were to go alone on, let's say, school, yeah, you would be in that, let's pay $28,000, $30,000 a student. It would not be viable for a community like Effingham. So we do benefit from being a member of a cooperative district, and the richer communities essentially supplement our kids. So what's not to like about that? And yeah, the formulas, they have a number of players in them. The state gets involved. They dictate how some of these monies have to be split up. I think the Department of Revenue Administration may have a say in it. Even the folks at the SAU who run this every year don't always know exactly what the dollars are going to be until the state gets back to them, which in this case happened, I think maybe like 6 weeks ago. So it gets pretty complex. But what Nate said, the 75-25, that's essentially correct.
All right, I'm gonna limit this to one more question, and I'm gonna call it a night. and then- You guys wanna wrestle for it?
Please.
Sure.
We'll go outside, you guys get on the
I'll put my money on you, Chris. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right, so on this formula years ago, about 4 years ago roughly, some of us, myself included, went over to Wolfboro. We went to a big auditorium. And we had some folks in there that were trying to work on education costs across the state. And they targeted us as part of this group. And they were very well-educated people with all this vast knowledge behind them. And they distilled the numbers down, as Mr. Edwards was pointing out, to a property base, not a 75-25. And when those numbers were done, Effingham was down lower. Everybody was under single, double-digit numbers. Tuftonboro and Wolfboro were bearing the brunt. But then again, with the value of property and stuff in that town, those towns, they're better off to be able to weather that storm. We take this town, and once you take the education tax and the county out of it, we probably don't, with our special projects, hit $2 million to spend on our town. The school is running at what, $56 million? So, I mean, it sounds great when you say, but you're only paying 14, 15,000 and these guys are paying double. But if you've got the money to pay double and it's not crushing you, then, maybe it isn't as equitable as it sounds.
So there's a question in
So
there.
my question is, how would you go about finding equity in there? Because it seems like it's a balance. And would you support, as a school board member, going to a property-based value system versus what we have?
Start with Jim and go to Nick.
Yeah, I don't know that the answer is that simple. You probably know that the funding of education in New Hampshire has been a topic of conversation for decades. I mean, we can go back to the Claremont decision of what, 25 years ago or something, where the state Supreme Court recognized that things had to be done differently. Well, you know what? They've never really gotten it. The system hasn't really been fixed. And we unfortunately really do have a property tax-based education system, which means, are you a rich community? Are you a poor community? Is your education then therefore linked to whether you've got a lot of money or not much money? And in some of these efforts, in terms of particularly cooperative school districts, where you say, okay, let's let the richer towns carry some of the load, attempt to fix that, but it's not perfect. By no means is it perfect. And it's also important to say, well, what are you getting for your money? When you look at the $58 million that we spend every year in the school district, 70% of that is in wages and benefits and so on. We're very labor intensive operation in the school district. So, in that formula, when you say, oh, what did the teachers in Effingham, what is the burden rate of those versus anybody else? It's not that simple. When you look at the breakdown in the budget for Effingham School, for example, of, and I don't remember what it was, maybe it was $3 million, but that's outside of the teacher salaries and so on. When we're talking about everything else, the physical infrastructure that has to be supported. It's a complicated thing, and I don't think anybody has figured out the perfect solution yet. So you've got some homework, Mike.
You're on there.
Go ahead, Nick.
But I'm depending on you.
I mean, sure. I mean, I think it would make sense for towns like Effingham, but I think it'd be a hard sell for towns like Tuftonboro and Wolfboro because, you have to get them to vote, and we, if we're lucky, we'll get 400 or 500 people to come vote, and they, they'll get 1,200. So I think that's the hard part is selling that to the rest of the district. So, I think, yeah, I'm always for trying to make it fair, and I think, I want to pay less in taxes too, but.
Well, if I may, in lieu of that whole situation, the school committee has shot down having an elected budget committee. Maybe that's something.
All right, so on that note, I would like to thank all of the candidates who are running for town and school positions. And we vote in Effingham on Tuesday, March 8th, and we will be voting in this room. We will not be voting in the school.
And the time?
And voting is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you've taken a town report, bring it to town meeting, because there may not be enough if you don't.
Get up.
Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank
We'll see you on March 8th.